LLCs are the same way as kind of like the trust. We have to have the owner sign with the LLC name by whatever their title is. Owner is not a title for an LLC. Okay, get that a lot. Member, president, something of that sort. Okay. If you know it's in an LLC, an authority of signers is helpful. They may not know. We can sometimes pull their certificate of organization from the Secretary of State's website, but the buyer's lender will 90% of the time ask me for authority for them to sign on behalf of the LLC. So you can always ask them up front. Okay. HOA contact and information. We can pretty much find any HOA, but if it's like self-managed or something like that, asking your seller up front, who do you make your payments to for the HOA? That helps us be able to reach out to them when it's time to get the HOA affidavit.
And that's something you can put on your sales worksheet too.
Yes, yes. It has to be on the MLS anyways, so I mean, you probably would know it. But a lot of times we'll get a seller that says, oh, I don't know, I just make the payment. They have no idea who it goes to or where, and then I don't know who to ask for the HOA affidavit. So power of attorney. Power of attorney has to be recorded before I can actually physically close. So if you have somebody that's signing on behalf of their parent and they have a power of attorney, get the power of attorney the minute you list the house. Okay. We've had power of attorneys that aren't active immediately. They have to have doctor's notes. We had one that had to have each sibling of the person had to sign, and then we had to go track down all the siblings and try to get all their forms. They have to be notarized. Can't be an email. I had somebody try to give me an email once. Has to be an actual legitimate form, notarized and signed. And then we have to record that with the county. We can record that for them. So if it's not recorded already, Tina just e-records that with the county, but it has to be recorded before we can actually close. So if you can get that up front, we can, if you get the power of attorney and you're like, I don't know what this means, just send it over and Sarah and I can look through it and make sure that it's usable. We have everything we need. And if we need anything, we can do it up front. Once it's sold again, we're already done. Okay. And then septics. We don't have a lot of wells anymore, but septics has to have time of transfer within 2 years. So if you have somebody that just bought last year and it had a time of transfer on it, you're good. You don't need to do it again. We can pull the same report that we just had. If we need a new time of transfer, we can certainly order that for you if you want us to. I always like to ask the sellers right up front, who did your last inspection? And then we usually use that same company. Okay. We have to have all the DNR reports to add to the groundwater hazard. So if you know you have a septic, please let us know that on the sales worksheet to point that out, because we don't see your listing, so we don't necessarily know.
Same on the buyer side for that. So we've got one that sold up in Iowa Falls.
Yep.
They had the inspection. They're getting everything up to DNR standards right now.
Yep.
So you need all of that.
On a buyer side, you just want to make sure that it's done and that it passed county standards. Yep. And if it didn't pass, then that's something you want to negotiate with the sellers to make sure that it passes, gets up to code, they get the final report, all that kind of stuff. But they can't close without the time of transfer. In some of the smaller towns like Iowa Falls and stuff, you might be okay to do, they'll do like a binding agreement. So they'll say, hey, this isn't done yet. We're going to do it. And then they'll close. A lot of the times here in the metro, it's got to be done.
A lot of times that would happen over like the
yes.
Right? Because
yep.
You're not taking
yep.
stuff up.
Right. Yep. And if you have a septic, we've run into this issue where, you know, you negotiate the septic's going to get replaced, but nobody negotiated the landscaping. And then it was a big argument after closing that the landscaping never got put back. And it was like $8,000 to replace all of that. And everybody was in a big fight about it. And we got rolled into that. And so that's another thing to think about when you're going through that, if you have one of those. So let us know. So those are just kind of things that are helpful to us that make it tricky. So
I have a question to go back. Okay,
yeah.
So the divorce. So
yes.
I'm dealing with that. The divorce is final.
Yes.
The house is still for sale. Do you need the decree?
It is helpful if there are property settlements in there, or if there are child support settlements in there. It's helpful to have. Okay. Yeah. It will pull in the title commitment too, but then if there's stuff that's in there, and then I'll say, hey, can I see the decree so I can see what it's telling me? Yeah. Yeah. Some people don't want to give it to me, and I don't need the whole thing. If they want to pull the pages that have the payments in it, that's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, just finishing up your listing that's sold. We will actually take the paperwork to closing, and we'll typically drop these off in advance. Like I usually like to get them out there just a day in advance. I don't like to make sure that I don't want them to be responsible for the documents. So I just take them out there the day before closing. After closing, we will pick up the checks. Typically at that point, we've already communicated with the sellers. And if you've already communicated with your sellers that you're going to drop their check off to them, just let us know. ahead of time, and then that way we can make sure that either we leave the check at closing for you to pick up, or you come to our office and pick them up yourselves. But typically your clients will come to our office and pick up their check, and then I will actually drop your check off here since I live here. And then if you go to your closing, either drop the check off to our office or just ask, you could drop it off here too, because I can pick it up too. Doesn't matter.
Sometimes they'll give you the integrity check, which is the closing fee check.
Yeah.
And if they do hand that to you, you can either leave it there or drop it off or leave it here or whatever. It's a pain to track those.
It is. I think that's it for listing stuff. How can we help on your buy side? Obviously, we can cash close for your buyers. We can close for most local lenders and all of out-of-state lenders. So if you have a out-of-state lender that you're working with, let them know that you'd like to have Integrity close, and then just send us the email or send Tina the email saying, hey, I'm going to have you guys close this. Here's the purchase agreement and the lender's information, and we'll reach out to them. Okay. What do you need to close for your buyer? Just like I said, send Emily and I the fully signed purchase agreement within 1 to 2 days after signing, and then add us as team members to the dot loop. We typically don't need your dot loop for any reason for a buyer's side unless we're transaction coordinators for you. But it is helpful to have in case Tina needs to look at closing cost addendum, or we're looking up your buyer broker fee or something like that. It's just nice to have access to the loop if we need it for any reason. Timeline on a closing for a buyer. So once the purchase agreement is received, you'll send it directly to Emily and I. Information will be sent to the closing team. Emily and I will do that as well, and most of the time I will CC you guys on that one. Integrity closing team will send out abstract instructions within a day or two of getting the title order from the lender. And Tina and Lexi will actually send that over to the listing agent's closer.
If you have a cash closing in the listing side saying who's closing for your buyer, you can just say copy Sarah and Emily on here, and then we'll route them where they need to go. You guys don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Title commitment is sent out. That's about 2 weeks or sooner if needed. Tina will actually get this from the attorney's office and send it out to the listing closer. Closing team preps for closing about a week to 10 days prior to closing. Tina and Lexi will work with the listing closer and the lenders on this piece. And then closing time and location, it's usually done about a week prior. We can help schedule if need be, but I think most of the time, if you're working with the lender, they usually like to set up the closing with their people and then let Tina know what time works for them. And
Cash buyer,
we'll
really quick, they can either sign in person,
yes,
or we can do everything remote. Most cash buyers don't care to come in. Cash closing takes 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So we can send out the closing statement through dot loop. If they have questions, they can call us on it. They can e-sign that and wire in their money. They can drop off a cashier's check, and everything's done remotely. Or they can actually come in and have a sit-down closing, if whatever they want. So
part of the
super
reason
easy.
there, just to understand the backstory on that, when you're doing a finance closing, there's 2 documents that need to be notarized.
Yes.
Right? On a cash closing.
Cash closing, there's
no
nothing needs
documents.
notarized. Yeah.
So that's why if you're,
Yep.
if you're asked or talking about it with the buyer and they might ask that question, I get that. You know, a lot like, well, don't I need to have it notarized or doesn't it need to be official? It is official, but a cash closing, like there's 2 house, there's like 4 signatures.
Yeah.
House.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll sign like the tax pro, the termite, and their closing statement, and that's it.
Yeah.
So.
And then closing preparation is about a day or 2 before closing. Tina and Lexi will work with the lender or cash if we are working with the buyer's agent. And then seller CD is sent out a day or 2 before closing as well. We actually, like we said before, we have to wait for the package from the lender to actually send this out. And Tina and Lexi will handle that part as well.
We can close for any lender. So if you guys have an out-of-state lender, or even if it's a local lender who normally uses somebody else and you just want to say, hey, would you be willing to use Integrity? We've gotten some people that come over one-offs. We have people that, I mean, they have their relationships too, and that's totally fine. But if you have anybody you want to bring in, just shoot them our way and we'll be happy to help.
One thing with that, sometimes the languages don't mix. So if you're working with like a Rocket Mortgage, a USAA, one of many different options, they might say different things. They might say, you have an attorney we can close with, some will say title agent, some will say closer, there's a lot of different words that they might use. If a lender from the out of state is looking for someone to help them, it's integrity, right? There's your first point of contact with them. A lot of times those out of state can be a little bumpy. As our brokerage, we know that integrity can soften some of those costs when you're working with that out of state lenders.
Yeah, so do you guys have questions? That's a lot. Do you have questions on any of that? Or if you do, you can always call us later or shoot us an email too. Anytime you have a weird one, if something pops up and you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, just let us know. I'm happy to walk through it with you. That transaction coordinator sheet, this is the service that we offer outside of obviously everything that we do with the listing closer side. This is something that I started several years ago and why I actually had to hire Sarah, because I had so much interest in it. And so it's really kind of an interesting thing that we do with helping our agents just kind of manage the paperwork side of their business. So it allows the agents to be out, listing appointments, networking, going to walkthroughs, going to their closings, all that kind of stuff without having to do the back end. We kind of break it up for you a little bit, what we can do on the listing side, what we can do on the buyer side. This form is not all encompassing with everything that you might need and or want. It's just a general overview, but pretty much if you think about it from a paperwork standpoint, it is us helping you with the computer paperwork stuff, and getting things signed and routed and making sure that your timelines are getting followed, and coordinating all the people. So you guys have, your time of transfer in Iowa Falls or whatever, we're checking up on those things for you, and just keeping your timelines moving. Listing side, we put in there that we can start from the very beginning. So we can do listing documents for you, get everything drafted, put together, put it in your loop. We have some agents that just want us to draft it and then they take it to their listing appointment and get it signed. They like to meet with their people, but it's all ready for you. So all you would have to do is print it. Everything's filled in. Some people want us to send out like an email that says, hey, we're transaction coordinators and we're helping get this stuff signed for you. Here's what you need to do for us. Once it's all signed, then we can submit it to the brokerage. Does Jess do all your listings? Yeah. So we would submit everything to Jess so that she can put it on the MLS for you and get it ready to go. And then if you're missing something, we track that down and make sure that it's ready. We'll locate the abstract for you, which we'll do that anyways as your listing closer. But if you have changes, like you need a price change form or whatever, and you're out in between appointments, you just say, hey, Sarah, can you change this to 325? We'll do that listing change form, get it signed and submit it for you. Communicating with people. So once it's under contract, just making sure, do we have the home warranty invoice, and does the buyer have their home inspection scheduled, and did we let our seller know, and what's the status of the buyer's loan and all that kind of stuff. Okay. The buyer side is basically coordinating once you've gone under contract. So you've got a purchase agreement. We then take that purchase agreement and we route it to everybody. So we can do the trust funds links for you. We have kind of a welcome email that we use that says, hey, now you're under contract, here's what you need to do. And we have templates for each of our agents because they have certain inspectors they want, or they have insurance people they want added, or whatever their special little languages. So we have templates for that. But we can start your trust funds link, get that sent out. We'll send the purchase agreement off to the lender and to the settlement agent. Again, if you have like that weird one-off lender, we'll say, hey, if you need a settlement agent, here's who we want you to use. Just kind of start that coordination piece for you. Submit the documents to brokerage, make sure everything's compliant, you've got all your signatures. We do a calendar reminder of the closing date, so we put everybody on that, and then once the time and stuff is set, we update that. Coordinating amendments to the lender and closer, so once we've got the home inspection done, you negotiated closing costs, we can draft that closing cost addendum and then route it out to everybody. Or if we're changing closing dates or whatever that might be. Making sure the inspections are done, addendums are executed. We have a tracker again for the loan status, so making sure the appraisal got ordered. When is it due back? Is it in? Is it approved? Do we have clear to close? All that kind of stuff. We make sure we get the termite from the listing side, or time of transfers, or any of that kind of stuff that we might need. We get inspection receipts, so we follow up on those for you and make sure that you have them. And then scheduling final walkthroughs and closings, and we have a reminder email to buyers with like utilities. So each city, we tell them, here's who you contact for your utilities, and make sure you change your address and all that kind of stuff. What else is in there? We do some new construction stuff too. So if you have new construction, we can do different stuff with that too. But And then we've got the remote online notary information on there as well, kind of how that works, and then some of our closing stuff too. So that's the TC program in a gist. If you have any interest in using that or trying it out for a deal or two, just have to let us know. And then we just kind of work through that process.
Yeah, that's it. Any questions, concerns?
I think the biggest thing also is these ladies are very accessible. If you have questions, I can answer some of them. If you reach directly out to them, they'll do whatever they can.
We are part of your team.
Yeah, happy to help.
Any other questions?
Okay.